So you guys and girls should have learned some different facts about Lyndon B. Johnson and his life. In the article and the video, it talked about Johnson's idea of a great society. This was Johnson's idea for America. He called for a war on poverty, where he wanted the poor citizens to have more ways to advance. Poverty means a person or family that does not make much money. Many times, people that live in poverty cannot afford food, clothing, or shelter. Johnson wanted to help these people, so he created many programs to make sure they had a way to succeed. Throughout this video, there are places to stop and discuss in your groups. There is time given to answer the questions, but if you need more time, you can pause the video and finish the conversation. Before John F. Kennedy was assassinated, which is another word for killed, he tried to pass the Civil Rights Act. Johnson made sure it was passed after he became president. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 made sure that people were not discriminated in public areas. Discriminated means you are treated differently because of the color of your skin, where you are from, or what you believe. Before the Civil Rights Act, African Americans were not allowed in certain restaurants, movie theaters, or hotels. It also said that schools could not be segregated. Segregation, or being segregated, means to separate based on race. African American students were not allowed to go to the same school as white children before this act was passed. It also made sure that when people applied for a job, the person hiring them could not hold their race, religion, or what country they came from against them. It was not easy putting this law into place, but this law changed many people's lives. Think for a moment how it might have changed the life of someone your age. The first program Johnson was able to pass was the Economic Opportunity Act in 1964. In this, a Job Corps was started to help students that needed help. The Job Corps still operates today. It helps people graduate from high school, learn a skill like welding, and helps them find jobs. Many people have been helped by the Job Corps. This program also started Head Start. Some of you may have heard of Head Start. It was started as a way to provide education to children to prepare them for public school. Just like the Job Corps, Head Start is still in business today. I know several children that have gone to Head Start, and I have friends that have sent their children there as well. Talk for a moment about how Head Start and the Job Corps can help people succeed. Do you remember earlier when we were talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Well, a year later, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. This made sure every person could vote. Many people were being turned away to vote because they were African American. Sometimes, African Americans were given tests where they had to read or write before they were able to vote. Many representatives, especially from the South, did not like this bill. In fact, many tried to stop the Voting Rights Act from being passed into law. However, it passed, and President Johnson signed it into law. Interesting fact, did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. was in the room when President Johnson signed the law? After Johnson was re-elected in 1964, he wanted to tackle health care. I'm sure you hear a lot of talk about healthcare in the news or from your parents and family. In 1964, Johnson saw that many senior citizens, that's older people like your grandparents, some of your older aunts or uncles, did not have health insurance. This was a very big problem. When people get older, they have to go to the doctor more often. Because many senior citizens were going to the doctor without health insurance, they were racking up major medical bills. This caused many senior citizens to live in poverty. You remember from earlier that poverty means a person does not make much money, and they usually cannot afford to buy basic needs like food and clothing. So to fight this problem, President Johnson helped establish Medicare by signing the Social Security Acts of 1965 into law. Along with Medicare, this also established Medicaid. Medicaid provides health care to people that cannot afford it otherwise. Next on Johnson's list was education. In the 60s, many Americans were not graduating from high school or even going to school very long. Congress passed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. With this law, the federal government, which is the President and Congress, would give money to schools to help fund programs in these schools. Therefore, schools were able to hire more teachers, buy more resources, and have better buildings. Johnson also saw problems with cities. Many people were moving out of the city. The people left in the city could not afford a house. Therefore, Johnson signed the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1965. Some people call this HUD. This gave money to public housing. Public housing is owned by the government and provides shelter for families that cannot afford to pay for housing. During Johnson's presidency, he also signed the Urban Mass Transportation Act. This gave money to create mass transit systems like city buses. The Food Stamp Act was also signed by Johnson. This helped provide people with food that they could otherwise not afford. Think back to the definition of poverty. How did public housing, public transportation, and food stamps try to solve the issue of poverty? Hopefully you have learned a lot of new information. Under this video link, I have the programs that I discussed in this video. After that, there is a graphic organizer describing the different programs passed as part of the Great Society. You can use this as a quick reference while you're writing your newspaper article. We did not discuss all of the programs on the graphic organizer, and that's okay. There were a lot of programs passed during Johnson's presidency. Good luck writing your articles!